Patrick's Day is right around the corner, so I thought it would be fitting to share some classic Irish recipes with you. Today I'm going to show you how to make Irish soda bread two different ways. One is a white bread studded with raisins, and the other is a brown bread made with whole wheat flour, molasses, and stout. So join me today as I share with you these two simple bread recipes, as well as tell you about the history of Irish soda bread and why the celebration for St. Patrick's Day is so big in the US as well. Let's get started. First, we're going to be making the raisin soda bread. Americans sometimes mistakenly call this spotted dick. It's actually called spotted dog. Spotted dick is an English steamed pudding with raisins. Put 500 grams or 3 2/3 of a cup of bread flour into a bowl with 1 teaspoon of salt, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, and 50 grams or 1/4 cup of sugar, and then whisk that all together. And then add in 100 grams or 2/3 of a cup of raisins. I'm actually using dried currants here, but you can use either. I like to work them into the dry ingredients to separate any clumps. This helps to distribute them more evenly throughout the bread. Then whisk together 200 milliliters or a scant 1 cup of buttermilk with 1 egg, and then work that into the flour with a fork, and then use your hands until all dry ingredients are incorporated. The first soda bread recipe dates back to 1836 in Farmer's Magazine in County Down, Ireland. That same recipe ended up circulating throughout the UK and the United States, but it didn't become a staple in the Irish diet until the potato famines in Ireland happening between 1845 and 1852, in which 1 million Irish died due to a blight infecting the potato crops, upon which the Irish had been heavily reliant on as a food source. Corn and corn maize imported from the US became the main replacer of potatoes at first, but eventually imported wheat flour ended up making its way to Ireland as well, and soda bread became an easy staple in the Irish diet due to the simplicity of the recipe and the minimal ingredients needed to make it. Now in Ireland, you can find all different kinds of soda bread, from plain to lightly sweetened with raisins, to brown bread, as well as brown bread with the additions of nuts and seeds, and all different other varieties as well. Many Americans are familiar with Irish soda bread because of St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day falls on March 17th and has been celebrated since the 9th or 10th centuries. St. Patrick lived in the 5th century and is the patron saint of Ireland because he is attributed as the one who brought Christianity to the Emerald Isle. One of the most well-known stories is that he taught the Irish people about the Trinity, the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, using the 3 leaves of the Irish shamrock. While St. Patrick's Day is still celebrated in Ireland today, some of the biggest celebrations actually take place in the United States, as these traditions were brought over and started by the Irish immigrants during the potato famine. So things like corned beef and cabbage and green beer aren't actually Irish St. Patrick's Day traditions, but rather traditions started by Irish immigrants and their descendants in the United States. Looking back at the dough now, you're going to form a rough ball of dough and then put that on a parchment-lined baking sheet and then cut across into the top of the dough for it to expand while it's baking. Then bake that in a 325 degree Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius oven for 45 to 50 minutes, or until golden brown and sounds hollow when tapped on the bottom. And then you're going to let it cool completely before cutting into it. For the brown bread, add 500 grams or 4 1/4 cups of whole wheat bread flour and 200 grams or 1 2/3 of a cup of bread flour with 2 teaspoons of salt and 1 1/2 teaspoons of baking soda. Whisk that all together, and then in a separate bowl, add 425 milliliters or 1 3/4 of a cup of buttermilk, 2 eggs, and 100 grams or 1/3 of a cup of molasses or treacle. You're going to whisk that all together, and then you're going to add it into the dry ingredients and stir it until you form a rough dough. And then you're going to add in up to 100 milliliters or a half a cup of stout, which is dark Irish beer. And just add a little bit at a time until a wet dough forms. You may not add the whole amount. I added about half of mine. Then you're going to pour it into a prepared loaf pan that has been greased and floured, and then smooth the top. And this is optional, but for a nice look and extra added touch, you can add oats to the top of your bread. Then bake that in a 265 degree Fahrenheit or 130 degrees Celsius preheated oven for 1.5 to 1 hour and 45 minutes until it has risen and sounds hollow when tapped on the bottom. And you'll want an internal temperature of 185 degrees Fahrenheit or 85 degrees Celsius if you like to take the internal temperature of your bread. I love how simple soda bread is. It's fast and rustic, and it requires no special skills to make it. Let's give these a try. I've had both white soda bread and spotted dog many times before, but I just learned the trick to use bread flour instead of all-purpose flour in the recipe, and that surprisingly makes quite a bit of difference. I really like this. It's firm and it's not crumbly when you slice it, which I find the recipes made with all-purpose flour, they kind of struggle to hold together when you slice them. And I love this with the dense, cakey texture of classic soda bread, but this is just a little bit nicer than regular soda bread just because it slices better and it has a little bit of a firmer texture. I love the little pop of sweetness you get from the raisins, but if raisins aren't your thing, you could definitely make this a plain white soda bread by just leaving out both the raisins and the sugar. Now let's give the brown bread a try. Wow, that is so much less dense and much softer than regular white soda bread. It's really delicious. I love the depth of flavor from the molasses and the stout in there. This would make an excellent toast for breakfast. If you enjoyed this video and you learned something, hit that like button and consider subscribing for more videos on European food and culture. While you're waiting for the next video, check out my Irish tea cake recipe, or for a fresh fruit dessert that is perfect for spring, check out my Scottish raspberry parfait, and I will see you next time.